Jake Morrison had been waiting for this moment his entire life. He stood in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council and felt the weight of 3 billion years of history pressing down on him. The chamber was massive and stretched upward for what seemed like miles. Thousands of alien beings sat in rows that spiraled around the circular room. Some had scales and some had fur, and others seemed to be made of light itself. Jake had studied every species in this room for the past 5 years, but seeing them in person was something else entirely. His uniform was pressed and clean, and the medals on his chest represented 15 years of diplomatic service. Kate Palmer stood next to him, and her hand rested near her sidearm out of habit. They were the only humans in a room filled with creatures that had been traveling the stars when Earth was still covered in ice. The room fell silent, and Jake felt every eye turned toward him. Some species had 2 eyes, and some had dozens. High Arbiter Zalketh rose from his crystalline throne at the center of the chamber. He was a Vryn, and his species had ruled over 100 worlds for the past 2,000 years. His 4 eyes were bright blue, and his skin looked like polished silver. He stood 9 feet tall, and his presence commanded respect. Jake had practiced his speech 1,000 times. He was ready to present humanity's case for membership in the Galactic Council. Earth had spent decades preparing for this moment. They had sent radio signals into space and built telescopes to watch the stars, and finally 50 years ago they had received an answer. The Council existed, and they were watching. For 50 years, humanity had worked to prove they were worthy of joining the greatest alliance the galaxy had ever known. Zalketh's voice filled the chamber without any visible technology. The translation happened directly in Jake's mind, and it felt strange, like someone else's thoughts mixing with his own. Humans. Zalketh began, and his tone was cold. Your species has submitted an application for membership in the Galactic Council. We have reviewed your history and your culture and your technological achievements. Jake felt hope rising in his chest. This was it. This was the moment Earth became part of something greater. The Council finds your species lacking. Zalketh continued, and the hope died instantly. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. Kate's hand tightened on her weapon. Your species is violent beyond measure, another council member spoke up. She was a Quellan, and her tentacles waved in the air as she talked. You have fought over 20,000 wars in your recorded history. Your planet is scarred by nuclear weapons and chemical warfare. You have caused the extinction of thousands of species on your own world. We have changed, Jake said, and his voice was steady despite the shock. Those wars taught us the value of peace. We have been united for 40 years now. No human nation has fought another since the Unity Accords. 40 years, Zalketh said, and his tone suggested he was laughing. Your species lives less than a century. 40 years is nothing. The youngest species on this council has maintained peace for 3,000 years. Other council members began speaking, and their voices overlapped in Jake's mind. They talked about humanity's aggression and short lifespan and primitive technology. They compared humans to children playing with weapons. They spoke about Earth like it was a problem that needed to be solved. Jake wanted to argue, but Zalketh raised one hand and silence returned. Furthermore, the High Arbiter continued, the Vryn Empire has invoked the doctrine of advanced settlement. Your solar system contains resources that we require. Under Council law, we have the right to claim any system occupied by pre-spacefaring species. We have space travel, Kate interjected. We have colonies on Mars and the Moon. You have outposts in your own backyard, Zalketh replied. That is not space travel. That is crawling from one room to another in your own house. The Council has ruled, another member announced. Humanity will vacate the Sol system within 10 standard cycles. That translates to approximately 14 of your Earth years. You will be relocated to Sector 793, which has been designated for primitive species that require supervision. Jake felt the words like physical blows. They were not just denying Earth membership. They were kicking humanity out of their own home. They were treating humans like animals that needed to be moved to a reservation. The Council began discussing other matters as if humanity no longer existed. They talked about trade agreements and border disputes between species that Jake had never heard of. Earth's entire future had been decided in less than 10 minutes, and now they were moving on. Jake looked at Kate and saw his own anger reflected in her eyes. They had come here with hope and dreams of joining a galactic community. They had imagined sharing knowledge and culture with species from across the stars. Instead, they had been dismissed like insects. The mission briefing had been clear. Jake had full authority to represent Earth in all negotiations. His superiors trusted him after 15 years of service. They had given him discretionary power to make decisions without waiting for approval from home. The message would take hours to reach Earth and hours more for a response to return. In critical situations, Jake was authorized to act on behalf of all humanity. This was definitely a critical situation. High Arbiter. Jake's voice cut through the chamber like a knife through silk. The other conversations stopped. Thousands of alien beings turned to look at him again. Zalketh's 4 eyes focused on Jake with something that looked like irritation. "The Council has made its decision, human," Zalketh said. "You are dismissed." "I invoke Article 73 of the Galactic Compact," Jake said clearly. The chamber went absolutely silent. Even the bioluminescent lights seemed to dim. Kate sucked in a breath beside him. "You cannot be serious," Zalketh said, and for the first time his voice showed emotion. "Article 73 allows any species to challenge a council ruling that affects their sovereignty," Jake continued. "We challenge your right to claim Earth. We challenge your authority to relocate humanity." "That article is for member species," a council member objected. "The article does not specify membership status," Jake replied. "Any species means any species." Kate leaned close and whispered, "Do you know what you are doing?" Jake did know. Article 73 had not been invoked in over 400 years. The last species to invoke it had fought a war against 3 council members and won their independence. The article was essentially a declaration that your species would rather fight than submit. "If you invoke Article 73, you are declaring war," Zalketh said slowly. "You understand this?" "I understand perfectly," Jake replied. "Humanity refuses your judgment. We refuse to leave our home. If the Vryn Empire wants Earth, they are going to have to take it by force." The chamber erupted into chaos. Dozens of species began shouting at once. Some were outraged, and some were shocked, and some seemed excited by the prospect of conflict. Guards moved toward Jake and Kate, but Zalketh raised his hand again. "You are condemning your species to extinction," Zalketh said, and his voice was cold as ice. "The Vryn war fleet has conquered 40 star systems. We have weapons that can crack planets. Your species still uses chemical rockets." "Then it should be a short war," Jake said calmly. "But it will be a war. Earth is not negotiable. Our home is not for sale, and it is not up for debate. If you want it, you will have to pry it from our dead hands." Kate stood straighter beside him. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. "So be it," Zalketh declared. "The Vryn Empire accepts your challenge. We will take Earth, and we will relocate your species by force. The Council will witness that humanity chose this path. Humanity chose to defend our home," Jake corrected. "History will judge who was in the right." The chamber continued to buzz with shocked conversations as Jake and Kate were escorted out. Once they were alone in the hallway, Kate grabbed Jake's arm. "They are going to send a fleet to Earth," she said. "I know," Jake replied. "We cannot win a conventional war against them." "I know that too." "Then why did you just declare war on the most powerful empire in the galaxy?" Jake smiled grimly. "Because they made a mistake. They think they know what humans are capable of because they listened to our radio broadcasts and watched our television signals. They think they understand us, and they do not. Not even close," Jake said. "They have been at peace for so long they have forgotten what war really means. But humans remember. We have spent our entire history fighting each other. We know every dirty trick and every desperate tactic. They have better technology, but we have something they do not." "What is that?" "Experience," Jake said. "And desperation. They are fighting for pride and territory. We are fighting for our survival." "There's a big difference," Kate nodded slowly. "How long do we have?" "Their fleet will take weeks to reach Earth even at faster than light speeds. That gives us time to prepare." "Prepare for what?" "We cannot match their firepower." Jake's smile grew wider. "We do not need to match it. We just need to make them regret coming. Let's go home, Kate. We have a war to win." High Commander Vexnar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the stars streak past. Behind him stretched the greatest war fleet the Vryn Empire had assembled in 3 centuries. 200 warships moved in perfect formation, and each one carried enough firepower to level a continent. The fleet had conquered 40 star systems and never lost a single battle. Vexnar was old even by Vryn standards. He had lived for nearly 2,000 years and commanded fleets for half that time. He had seen species rise and fall, He had watched civilizations crumble under the might of Vryn technology. This mission should have been simple. The humans were primitives who barely understood the basics of space travel. His tactical officer approached and bowed respectfully. The officer was young and had only 500 years of experience. "Commander, the intelligence reports are complete," the officer said and handed over a data tablet. Vexnar studied the information with growing amusement. The humans used chemical rockets to reach orbit. Their weapons were mostly kinetic projectiles that relied on explosives. They had no energy shields and no plasma weapons. Their fastest ships moved at a fraction of light speed, and even that required most of their fuel. They still use nuclear fission for power, Vexnar said and shook his head. "We abandoned that technology 3,000 years ago. The reports indicate they have military satellites around their planet," the tactical officer added. "Mostly for communication and surveillance. Any weapons platforms? Some missiles with nuclear warheads. Primitive guidance systems. Our shields will stop them easily." Vexnar studied the tactical display. Earth was 17 cycles away at their current speed. The Galactic Council had authorized the use of force but had also requested minimal casualties. The goal was to relocate the humans, not exterminate them. "Reduce our speed by 20%, Vexnar ordered. The tactical officer looked surprised. "Commander? I want to give them time to reconsider," Vexnar explained. "Perhaps when they see our fleet approaching, they will surrender peacefully. There is no honor in destroying those who cannot defend themselves." The officer nodded and relayed the orders. The fleet slowed, and the journey to Earth would now take 21 cycles instead of 17. Vexnar had fought many battles, but he preferred diplomacy when possible. He remembered the last species that had challenged the Vryn Empire. The Kelthrans had possessed advanced technology and powerful weapons. The war had lasted 30 years and cost millions of lives on both sides. Eventually the Vryn had won, but it had been costly. These humans were not like the Kelthrans. They were barely more advanced than the primitive species the Council usually ignored. The human envoy's declaration of war had been foolish and desperate. Surely once they saw the Vryn fleet they would realize the futility of resistance. "Prepare a message for the humans," Vexnar said. "Inform them that we are willing to accept their surrender at any time. No harm will come to those who submit peacefully." Far away on Earth, the message was received with grim silence. Admiral Lisa Grant stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The room was filled with screens showing military installations across the planet and beyond. Around the table sat the most experienced military commanders humanity had ever produced. Lisa was 60 years old and had spent 40 of those years in the military. She had commanded naval fleets before being promoted to oversee Earth's defense. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly and her eyes missed nothing. "They slowed down," General Paul Hayes said and pointed at the tracking display. "They are giving us time to surrender." "Good," Lisa replied. "That gives us more time to prepare." Colonel Dan Foster leaned forward. "Admiral, all defensive positions are ready. The orbital platforms are armed and operational. The lunar bases have activated their weapon systems." Lisa nodded. "What about the special projects?" Dan smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "Operation Meteor Storm is ready. We have attached ion drives to 47 near-Earth asteroids. When the Vryn fleet arrives, they are going to find our asteroid belt is much more aggressive than they expected." "The electromagnetic pulse mines?" Lisa asked. "Deployed throughout the solar system," another officer confirmed. "Invisible to their sensors. When they get close enough, we can fry their electronics." Lisa walked to the display showing Earth's defenses. To any outside observer, it would look pathetic. A few satellites and some bases on the Moon and Mars, but appearances were deceiving. "They think they know everything about us," Lisa said quietly. "They have been listening to our radio signals and watching our television broadcasts. They believe they understand human technology. They have no idea." Paul agreed. For 50 years, humanity had known they were not alone. For 50 years, they had prepared for this exact scenario. Not every technological advancement had been broadcast to the stars. Some projects had been kept absolutely secret. Dr. Helen Brooks entered the war room. She was the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division and looked more like a grandmother than a weapons designer. She carried a tablet filled with data. "The railgun network is online," Helen announced. "We have 30 installations on the lunar surface. Each can fire a tungsten rod at 0.03% of light speed." "Effective range?" Lisa asked. "Accurate up to 2 million kilometers." The rods will retain lethal velocity much further. What about the experimental lasers? Helen's smile widened. The nuclear-pumped laser satellites are in position, 70 platforms scattered throughout the system. Each one is a one-shot weapon, but the energy output will surprise them. Lisa studied the tactical board. The Vryn fleet was powerful, but they were arrogant. They expected an easy victory against primitives who barely understood spaceflight. How many wars has the Vryn Empire fought in the last century? Lisa asked. An intelligence officer checked his files. 3 confirmed conflicts, all against pre-industrial civilizations. The longest lasted 6 months. And how many wars has humanity fought in the last century? The room fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. 2 world wars. Dozens of regional conflicts. Constant smaller engagements. Humanity had spent the 20th century perfecting the art of killing each other. They have better technology, Lisa acknowledged. Faster ships, energy shields, plasma weapons that can melt steel. But they have forgotten how to actually fight a war. We have been fighting each other since we learned to throw rocks, Paul added. Exactly, Lisa said. They are going to come in with textbook formations and standard tactics. They will expect us to either surrender or die quickly. What is the plan? Dan asked. Lisa pulled up a new display showing the entire solar system. Red dots marked human positions. Blue dots showed the projected path of the Vryn fleet. We are going to give them exactly what they expect, Lisa explained. At first, let them think we are helpless primitives. Let them get comfortable. Then we hit them with everything we have. The submarines? Someone asked. Lisa nodded. All 15 deep space submarines are in position, running silent in the outer system. The Vryn will never see them coming. The submarines were humanity's secret weapon. Built over the past 20 years, they were designed to operate without active sensors. They were basically invisible in the vastness of space. Each carried enough nuclear missiles to destroy a city. What about the kinetic bombardment platforms? Helen asked. Armed and ready, Dan confirmed. 300 satellites in high orbit, each carrying 20 tungsten rods. That is 6,000 projectiles they will not see coming. Lisa looked around the room at her commanders. These were people who had studied every war humanity had ever fought. They knew Sun Tzu and Clausewitz and Patton. They understood that technology alone did not win wars. Strategy and tactics and sheer determination mattered just as much. The Vryn think this will be easy, Lisa said. They think we will see their fleet and surrender. They are wrong. We are going to teach them why you should never underestimate a species that has spent 10,000 years learning to kill. When do we engage? Paul asked. We let them get close to Earth, Lisa replied. We want them deep in our defensive zone, surrounded by our weapons. Then we activate everything at once. Asteroids from above, mines from below, railguns from the moon, missiles from Earth, submarines from the outer system. We hit them from every direction and we do not stop until they run or die. They might destroy Earth, someone warned. They might try, Lisa agreed. But the Council authorized force to relocate us, not exterminate us. They want Earth intact. That gives us an advantage. They have to be careful. We do not, Dan laughed. You want to turn our own solar system into a trap. Our home is worth defending, Lisa said firmly. Every mountain and every ocean and every city. If they want Earth, they are going to have to take it from us, and we are going to make them pay for every meter. The Vryn fleet continued toward Earth, and Vexnar reviewed the battle plans. It would be simple and clean. The fleet would enter Earth's orbit and broadcast a final surrender demand. When the humans inevitably refused, the Vryn would disable their satellites and destroy any military installations. A few demonstration strikes would show the futility of resistance. Then the humans would surrender, and the relocation could begin. Commander, we are detecting increased activity around Earth, the tactical officer reported. Multiple launches from the surface. Appear to be satellites. They are reinforcing their defenses, Vexnar said dismissively. It will not matter. Should we be concerned? About primitives with chemical rockets? Vexnar shook his head. No, maintain course. Prepare the surrender broadcast. This will be over soon. He could not have been more wrong. The Vryn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system in perfect formation. 200 warships arranged in a sphere that had been used successfully for 1,000 years. Every ship knew its position and every commander knew their role. It was a formation that had never been broken. Commander Vexnar stood on his bridge and watched the blue-green planet in the distance. Earth looked peaceful and beautiful and utterly defenseless. Sensors showed a few satellites in orbit and some bases on the moon, but nothing that could challenge a Vryn warfleet. "Ships report ready," the tactical officer announced. "Begin the approach," Vexnar ordered. "Standard speed. Maintain formation." The fleet moved forward and Vexnar felt satisfied. This would be a quick operation. The humans would see the overwhelming force arrayed against them and surrender. Perhaps some would even be grateful to be relocated to a safer region of space. The first warning came when sensors detected movement. "Commander, multiple objects approaching at high speed," the tactical officer said, and his voice showed the first hint of concern. "Missiles?" Vexnar asked. "Negative." "They appear to be asteroids," Vexnar frowned. "Natural debris? Adjust course to avoid them." "Commander, these asteroids are maneuvering. They have engines attached." For a moment, Vexnar could not process what he was hearing. The humans had weaponized asteroids. They had taken rocks from space and turned them into projectiles. "Evasive action," Vexnar ordered. "All ships break formation." The neat sphere dissolved as ships scattered to avoid the incoming asteroids. Some fired plasma weapons and vaporized the rocks, but for every one destroyed, 2 more appeared. The humans had been busy. The first asteroid struck a Vryn cruiser's shields. The shields held, but the energy drain was massive. Asteroids were not sophisticated weapons, but they carried enormous mass. Basic physics meant that mass times velocity equaled force. The humans had sent dozens of multi-ton rocks flying at thousands of kilometers per hour. "Shields holding," the tactical officer reported. "But we are depleting energy reserves faster than expected." Another asteroid hit and then another. The shields flickered under the sustained bombardment. Then a fourth impact and the shields failed completely. The next asteroid punched through the hull like it was paper. Atmosphere vented into space and the cruiser went dark. "Return fire," Vexnar roared. "Destroy those asteroids." The fleet unleashed a barrage of plasma fire. Asteroids exploded into clouds of debris, but more kept coming. Whoever had planned this attack had prepared thoroughly. Then the railguns opened fire. From the lunar surface, 30 electromagnetic launchers began firing tungsten rods at a fraction of light speed. The rods were simple pieces of metal, but they moved so fast that they hit with the force of tactical nuclear weapons. A Vryn destroyer took a direct hit and its shields collapsed instantly. The rod punched through the ship from bow to stern. "Where is that fire coming from?" Vexnar demanded. "The moon," the tactical officer replied, and his voice was shaking now. "They have weapons platforms on their moon." "Impossible. Our intelligence said they only had research bases." "The intelligence was wrong, Commander." Vexnar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. The humans had hidden military installations on their own moon. They had disguised weapons platforms as research stations. The deception was masterful. "All ships focus fire on the lunar surface," Vexnar ordered. "Destroy those platforms." The fleet turned its attention to the moon and plasma bolts began raining down on the installations. But the railguns kept firing. The humans had buried them deep underground and protected them with layers of rock and metal. Destroying them would take time. Time the Vryn fleet did not have. Captain Ryan Clark commanded the Earth Defense Force flagship Defiance from the bridge of what had once been a cargo hauler. The ship was ugly and slow, but it was covered in armor plating and bristling with weapons. Around him floated 30 more converted civilian ships. They were not warships by any standard definition, but they were all Earth had. "All ships moved to defensive positions," Ryan ordered. "Execute Plan Thermopylae." The human fleet formed a sphere around Earth. They were not trying to defeat the Vryn in open combat. They were creating a killing field where every advantage belonged to the defenders. "Magnetic mines activating, weapons officer," Sam Turner reported. Throughout the battlefield, invisible electromagnetic pulses erupted. The mines had been deployed weeks ago and scattered throughout the approach path to Earth. Now they detonated and sent massive electromagnetic pulses in all directions. Vryn sensors went dark. Shield generators flickered and failed. Targeting systems crashed. In the confusion, the human submarines attacked. They had been waiting in the outer system, running silent and invisible. Now they closed in from unexpected angles. Each submarine launched a full spread of nuclear-tipped missiles. The Vryn had superior technology, but nuclear weapons were nuclear weapons. When they detonated, the explosions were visible from Earth. Direct hits on multiple targets. Sam reported with grim satisfaction. "Keep firing," Ryan ordered. "Do not give them time to recover." The Vryn fleet was in chaos. Ships collided with each other trying to avoid asteroids. Sensors were failing from electromagnetic interference. Shields were overwhelmed by sustained bombardment. And now nuclear missiles were exploding throughout their formation. "They are everywhere," the Vryn tactical officer screamed. "We cannot track them all." Vexnar watched his beautiful formation disintegrate into a confused melee. Human ships darted in and out using debris as cover. They fired missiles from behind their own destroyed vessels. They used tactics that no civilized species would employ. A human frigate rammed a damaged Vryn cruiser when it ran out of ammunition. The impact destroyed both ships but took out the cruiser's main reactor. The explosion caught 2 more Vryn ships in the blast. "They are insane," someone on the bridge whispered. Perhaps they were, but they were also effective. The humans fought without honor or restraint. They used every dirty trick and desperate tactic. They turned their own solar system into a weapon. The kinetic bombardment platforms activated next. 300 satellites in high orbit released their payloads. 6,000 tungsten rods began falling toward the Vryn fleet. They were not guided missiles. They were just falling metal. But in the zero gravity of space, falling meant moving in whatever direction you were pushed. And the satellites had pushed them directly at the Vryn formation. "Incoming projectiles," the tactical officer warned. "Thousands of them." "Shields up," Vexnar ordered. But many ships had already depleted their shields fighting off asteroids and missiles. The tungsten rods struck with devastating effect. They punched through hulls and shattered armor. They destroyed engines and weapon systems. They killed with the simple, brutal efficiency of kinetic energy. A Vryn battleship took 12 hits in rapid succession. The rods tore through deck after deck. Secondary explosions ripped the ship apart from the inside. It broke in half and both pieces tumbled through space-trailing debris. "Casualty report," Vexnar demanded. 47 ships destroyed, 63 ships damaged. 16 ships are unable to continue combat operations. Vexnar felt something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. Over half his fleet was gone or disabled. The humans had done this with primitive weapons and clever tactics. What would they be capable of with actual military technology? "We need to retreat," the tactical officer said. "No," Vexnar replied. "We still outnumber them. Reform the fleet. Prepare for a final assault on Earth itself." The remaining Vryn ships began regrouping, but the humans were not finished. Admiral Lisa Grant watched from Earth's war room as the battle unfolded exactly as planned. The Vryn were reeling, but they still had enough firepower to devastate Earth if given the chance. "Activate the laser satellites," Lisa ordered. In orbit around Earth, 70 platforms came to life. Each contained a nuclear warhead and a sophisticated laser system. When the warhead detonated, it would pump enormous energy into the laser for a fraction of a second. It was a one-shot weapon, but that one shot carried more power than a dozen conventional lasers. The satellites fired simultaneously. 70 beams of coherent light crossed the distance to the Vryn fleet in an instant. Shields designed to stop plasma weapons and kinetic projectiles were not designed for nuclear-pumped lasers. The beams burned through armor and hulls. They sliced ships in half. They turned warships into expanding clouds of superheated gas. Direct hits on 18 targets, Sam reported. All destroyed. Vexnar watched as more ships died. The humans had hidden their most powerful weapons until the perfect moment. They had let the Vryn think they understood Earth's capabilities and then revealed something completely unexpected. "Retreat," Vexnar finally ordered. "All ships full withdrawal. Jump to faster than light speed as soon as we clear the gravity well." The remaining Vryn ships turned and fled. They abandoned damaged vessels. They left debris and dead behind. They ran from primitives with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons. Of the 200 ships that had arrived, 73 escaped. Over 100 ships destroyed. Thousands of Vryn dead. It was the worst military defeat the Empire had suffered in 500 years. Ryan watched the Vryn fleet disappear into faster-than-light travel. Around him, the IDIS bridge crew cheered. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had defended Earth. "Damage report," Ryan asked once the celebration died down. 12 ships destroyed. 8 badly damaged. Casualties are still being counted. Ryan nodded. They had paid a price, but they had won. The Vryn had learned a hard lesson. Never underestimate a species that has spent its entire existence learning to fight. On his flagship, Vexnar sat in silence and stared at the casualty reports. He had commanded fleets for 1,000 years. He had never lost a battle. Now he had been defeated by primitives who should not have stood a chance. The humans had won through cunning and desperation and sheer bloody-minded determination. They had turned their weaknesses into strengths. They had used creativity to overcome technological disadvantage. They had fought like cornered animals because that is exactly what they were, and cornered animals were the most dangerous creatures in the universe. The Galactic Council chamber was in complete chaos. Thousands of alien beings shouted and argued and demanded answers. High Arbiter Zalketh stood at the center trying to maintain order, but even his authority was being challenged. The holographic display above the chamber showed the Battle of Earth on repeat. Every council member had watched the footage dozens of times, and each viewing made the situation worse. Senator Kreoth of the Mandri Consortium leaned forward in his seat. His species resembled large insects with crystalline wings and compound eyes. He watched the footage again as human weapons destroyed Vryn warships with brutal efficiency. "This is unprecedented," Kreoth said quietly to the ambassador next to him. The humans defeated a full warfleet with primitive technology. Ambassador Lyra Quinn sat in the human delegation area and tried not to smile. She was 50 years old and had been appointed Earth's official representative 3 days ago. Her job was to capitalize on the military victory and secure humanity's position in the galaxy. She wore a simple business suit and kept her expression neutral while chaos erupted around her. "Order!" Zalketh's voice boomed through the chamber. "This council will have order." The shouting gradually subsided. Zalketh's four eyes blazed with anger and humiliation. The Vryn Empire had suffered its worst defeat in centuries, and it had happened under his authority. "The humans have committed an act of war against a council member species," Zalketh declared. "This aggression cannot stand." Lyra stood up. "Permission to speak, High Arbiter." "You have nothing to say that this council wants to hear," Zalketh replied coldly. "With respect, the council invited us to speak," Lyra said firmly. "Article 73 gives us the right to defend our position." Several council members nodded. Whatever they thought of humanity, the rules were clear. Lyra had the legal right to address the council. "Very well," Zalketh said reluctantly. "Speak, human." Lyra walked to the center of the chamber where everyone could see her. She was tiny compared to most species present, but she carried herself with confidence. The Vryn Empire declared their intention to seize Earth and relocate humanity by force. Lyra began. "We invoked our legal right to defend our sovereignty. The Vryn sent a war fleet to enforce their claim. We defended our home. Every action we took was in response to Vryn aggression. You destroyed over 100 warships," a council member shouted. "They came to take our planet," Lyra replied calmly. "What did you expect us to do? Surrender our home without a fight?" "You were outmatched," another member argued. "You should have accepted the council's judgment." Lyra turned to face the speaker. "Would you surrender your homeworld? Would any species here give up everything without resistance? We did what any of you would do if faced with extinction." "You are primitives," Zalketh said. "You have no right to challenge council authority." "We may be primitives by your standards," Lyra acknowledged. "But we are not helpless. You made the mistake of assuming technology equals strength. You forgot that desperation and ingenuity can overcome technological advantage." Senator Kreoth spoke up. "The human makes a valid point. The Vryn underestimated their opponent. That is not the humans' fault. They used barbaric tactics," Zalketh protested. "They weaponized asteroids. They detonated nuclear devices in space. They rammed ships when they ran out of ammunition. They used every available resource to defend their home," Kreoth corrected. "As any species would, as the Vryn themselves have done in the past." Lyra seized the opportunity. "The Vryn Empire has conquered 40 star systems over the past 1,000 years. How many of those civilizations surrendered without a fight? How many defended themselves? And when they did defend themselves, did the Vryn show mercy?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the answer. The Vryn had built their empire through military conquest. They had destroyed civilizations that resisted. Now they were angry because someone had successfully resisted them. "What do you want, human?" a council member finally asked. "Recognition," Lyra said simply. "We want Earth recognized as human sovereign territory. We want the council to acknowledge our right to exist. We want to be left in peace, and if we refuse?" Zalketh asked. Lyra met his gaze without flinching. "Then we continue fighting. The Vryn sent 200 ships and 73 survived. How many ships will you send next? 400. 1,000? How many Vryn lives is Earth worth? You cannot win a prolonged war against the Empire, Zalketh stated. Maybe not, Lyra agreed. But we can make it incredibly expensive. Every ship you send we will destroy or damage. Every soldier you send will face an enemy that has spent 10,000 years perfecting warfare. We have studied every battle ever fought on Earth. We know tactics you have never seen. We have weapons you did not expect. And we are analyzing the wreckage of your ships right now. That last statement sent a murmur through the chamber. The humans were reverse engineering Vryn technology. In a few years they might have energy shields and plasma weapons of their own. You threaten the entire council, someone accused. No, Lyra corrected. We threaten anyone who tries to take our home. The rest of you can leave us alone and we will leave you alone. We did not ask to join your wars. We did not seek conflict. You came to us. You threatened us. You attacked us. We simply defended ourselves. Senator Kreoth stood up. His voice carried authority that surprised many in the chamber. Perhaps we should consider the human proposal. They ask only for sovereignty over their own system. That is not unreasonable. They embarrassed the Vryn Empire, Zalketh argued. They must face consequences. The Vryn Empire embarrassed itself, Kreoth replied sharply. They assumed an easy victory and paid the price for their arrogance. The humans simply took advantage of Vryn mistakes. Other council members began voicing opinions. Some supported Kreoth's position. Others demanded retribution. A few species who had been conquered by the Vryn seemed almost pleased to see the Empire humbled. Ambassador Vressa of the Peaceful Alignment rose. Her species resembled tall, elegant birds with colorful plumage. I propose we recognize human sovereignty over the Sol system. They have proven themselves capable of defending their territory. Further conflict serves no purpose. They are dangerous, Zalketh insisted. So are we all, Vressa replied. Every species here possesses weapons of mass destruction. Every species here has fought wars. The humans are no different except they remember what war costs. Lyra watched the debate unfold. She had prepared arguments and evidence, but sometimes the best strategy was to let others make your case. Kreoth and Vressa were influential voices and their support was invaluable. The council must vote, Zalketh finally said, all in favor of recognizing human sovereignty over the Sol system. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Nearly 60% of council members supported recognition. The Vryn Empire and its closest allies voted against, but they were outnumbered. The motion carries, Kreoth announced. Humanity is recognized as a sovereign species. Earth and its solar system are acknowledged as human territory. Lyra felt relief wash over her, but she kept her expression neutral. This was only the first step. However, Zalketh added quickly, there are conditions. Humanity must agree to non-aggression treaties with all council species. You must limit military expansion beyond your home system, and you must submit to regular inspections to ensure compliance. Lyra's relief evaporated. No. Excuse me? Zalketh's four eyes narrowed. We will sign mutual non-aggression treaties, Lyra clarified. We have no interest in conquering other worlds, but we will not limit our expansion and we will not submit to inspections. You dare dictate terms to this council? Zalketh demanded. I am protecting my species' interests, Lyra replied. You want us to disarm so you can verify we are not a threat. But the moment we disarm, we become vulnerable. The whole point of our military is deterrence. You leave us alone because you are not sure what we are capable of. That uncertainty protects us. Admiral Bill Stone stood up next to Lyra. He had been silent until now, but his presence added weight to her words. Bill was 65 years old and commanded Earth's military forces. He wore his dress uniform and the medals on his chest represented 40 years of service. Uncertainty is a weapon, Bill said. You know we hurt you badly. You do not know how much worse we can make it. That keeps you cautious. The moment you know our capabilities, you can plan around them. We will not give you that advantage. Senator Kreoth nodded slowly. The human position is logical. They ask for what every sovereign species possesses, security through strength. They could become a threat to the entire galaxy, Zalketh warned. They could also become valuable allies, Vressa countered. They have proven themselves resourceful and determined. Those qualities could benefit the Council if we treat them with respect rather than hostility. The debate continued for another hour. Finally, a compromise was reached. Humanity would sign mutual non-aggression pacts with any Council species willing to do the same. Humans would agree not to expand into territory already claimed by other species. In return, Earth and the Sol system were recognized as sovereign human territory. No inspections. No restrictions. No interference. Lyra accepted the terms. It was not everything she wanted, but it was enough. Earth was safe and humanity was free. As the session ended, Zalketh approached Lyra and Bill privately. His expression was cold, but his voice was quiet. "You have made powerful enemies today," the High Arbiter said. "We have had enemies before," Bill replied. "We are still here. They are not. Your species is young and reckless. Our species is young and hungry," Lyra corrected. "We have a whole galaxy to explore. You showed us we are not alone. Now we want to see what else is out there, but we will follow the rules as long as the rules are fair." Zalketh studied them both. "What frightens the Council most is not your weapons or tactics. It is your potential. You achieved in centuries what took us millennia. What will you be capable of in 1,000 years?" Lyra smiled. "I guess you will have to wait and find out. But here is something to consider. We could be your enemies or we could be your friends." "We would prefer friends? Why?" Zalketh asked, genuinely curious. "Because humans know how to fight," Lyra said. "But we also know how to forgive and cooperate and build. Every nation on Earth has been at war with every other at some point. Now we stand united. If we could do that among ourselves, imagine what we could accomplish with you." For the first time, Zalketh saw something in the humans' eyes that was not defiance or aggression. It was hope. And perhaps that was the most dangerous thing about humans. They still believed things could get better. Jake Morrison returned to the Galactic Council chamber 3 months after his first visit. The atmosphere had changed completely. Guards no longer looked at him with contempt. Council members nodded respectfully as he passed. The human delegation now occupied seats reserved for recognized sovereign species, instead of standing in the petitioners' area. The chamber was full. Every council member had come to witness the formal ceremony. Jake wore his dress uniform and Kate Palmer stood beside him. Behind them were Admiral Bill Stone and Ambassador Lyra Quinn. Together they represented humanity's new position in the galaxy. High Arbiter Zalketh rose from his crystalline throne. His 4 eyes studied Jake with an expression that was difficult to read. Respect mixed with wariness, mixed with something that might have been curiosity. "Commander Morrison," Zalketh began, and his voice carried through the chamber. "3 months ago you stood in this chamber and declared war on behalf of your species. Today you return under very different circumstances." Jake nodded but said nothing. He had learned that sometimes silence was more powerful than words. "The Galactic Council has debated humanity's status for many weeks," Zalketh continued. "We have reviewed the battle records. We have analyzed your tactics and weapons. We have considered the implications of your victory." The chamber was absolutely silent. Thousands of alien beings waited to hear the formal declaration. "The Council recognizes humanity as a sovereign species," Zalketh announced. "Earth and the Sol system are hereby acknowledged as human territory under the protection of galactic law. No council member may claim or invade human space without provocation." There was polite applause from some sections of the chamber. Others remained silent, but no one protested. The decision had been made. However, Zalketh added, and his voice grew harder, "there are terms that must be agreed upon. You will sign non-aggression pacts with all willing council species. You will respect the territorial claims of others, and you will operate under the same laws that govern all spacefaring civilizations." Jake stepped forward. "Humanity accepts these terms with one clarification. We will defend ourselves if threatened. We will not tolerate any attempt to interfere with human sovereignty, and we reserve the right to expand into unclaimed territory." "Unclaimed territory only," Zalketh emphasized. "You may not seize worlds belonging to other species." "We have no interest in conquest," Jake replied. "We simply want the freedom to grow and explore." Senator Krieth spoke up from his seat. "The terms seem fair to all parties. Are there any objections?" The chamber remained quiet. Even the Vryn delegates stayed silent, though their expressions showed bitter resentment. "Then it is settled," Krieth announced. "Welcome to the galactic community, humanity. May your species find prosperity and peace among the stars." The formal ceremony concluded, and Jake felt the tension drain from his shoulders. They had done it. Earth was safe and humanity had earned its place among the stars. As the council members began filing out, Zalketh approached the human delegation. His guards stayed close, but their weapons remained holstered. "A word in private, Commander," Zalketh said. Jake glanced at Bill, who nodded. They followed Zalketh to a small chamber off the main hall. Kate and Lyra came along, but the guards remained outside. "You have achieved something remarkable," Zalketh said once they were alone, "but you have also made powerful enemies. The Vryn Empire will not forget their defeat. Other species fear what humanity might become." "We did not seek conflict," Jake replied. "We only wanted to be left alone." "Yet conflict found you anyway," Zalketh observed. "That is the nature of the galaxy. There are hundreds of species and thousands of factions. Conflicts arise even among allies. What will humanity do when faced with more complex situations?" "We will adapt," Lyra said. "We are good at that." Zalketh studied her. "Yes, you are. That is what concerns many council members. You adapt too quickly. You learn too fast. In 3 months you went from defending Earth to reverse engineering Vryn technology. What will you accomplish in 3 years? In 30 years? Does that frighten you?" Bill asked bluntly. "Yes," Zalketh admitted. "It does, but perhaps fear is not entirely a bad thing. It makes us cautious. It forces us to treat you with respect." "That is all we ask," Jake said. "Respect and the freedom to determine our own future." Zalketh was quiet for a moment. "I underestimated your species, Commander Morrison. I believed the reports that called you primitives. I thought your declaration of war was foolish desperation." "I was wrong. You were not alone," Kate said. "The Vryn thought the same thing. What did we miss?" Zalketh asked, genuinely curious. "How did primitives with chemical rockets defeat a war fleet?" Jake smiled. "You assumed technology was everything. You thought better weapons guaranteed victory, but war is not about who has the best tools. It is about who wants to win more. The Vryn came to relocate us. We were fighting for our survival. That made all the difference. And your tactics," Zalketh added. "You fought without honor or mercy." "We fought to win," Bill corrected. "Honor is a luxury for those who can afford to lose." "We could not afford to lose." Zalketh nodded slowly. "You have taught the Council a valuable lesson. We have been at peace for so long that we forgot what war truly means. We have better technology than our ancestors, but we have lost their warrior spirit. You reminded us that determination and creativity can overcome technological advantage." "Is that why you are here?" Lyra asked. "To tell us we frightened the Council?" "No," Zalketh replied. "I am here to offer advice. The Council has accepted your sovereignty, but that does not mean your troubles are over. There are species who will test you. Pirates who will raid your shipping. Factions who will try to manipulate you. The galaxy is not a peaceful place where we can handle ourselves," Jake said. "I believe you can," Zalketh agreed. "But I also believe you will need allies. The Vryn have many friends among the Council. You have very few. Are you offering to be one?" Kate asked skeptically. "Perhaps," Zalketh said carefully. "The Vryn and I do not always agree. I found their attempt to seize Earth distasteful even before your victory. Now I find it embarrassing. They overreached and paid the price. What do you want in return?" Bill asked. "Politics always involve trade-offs. Knowledge," Zalketh replied. "Your species has unique perspectives on warfare and tactics. We could learn from you. In exchange, we could help you navigate galactic politics. We could introduce you to potential allies. We could share information about threats you do not yet know exist." Jake considered the offer. Humanity needed friends, and Zalketh was offering a genuine alliance. But trust had to be earned. "We will think about it," Jake said finally. "But understand this. We will not be anyone's puppet. We make our own decisions." "I would not expect anything less," Zalketh replied. "You did not fight for freedom only to surrender it to new masters." They left the private chamber and returned to the main hall. The other council members had mostly departed, but Senator Kreoth waited near the exit. Commander Morrison Kreoth greeted them. "I wanted to speak with you before you returned to Earth," Senator Jake replied. "Your support in the council was invaluable." "I did what was right," Kreoth said. "The Vryn were wrong to try to seize your world. I am glad you resisted. Why did you support us?" Lyra asked. "Most species sided with the Vryn or abstained." Kreoth's compound eyes reflected the chamber lights. "Because I remember what it is like to be threatened by a superior force. The Mandarin Consortium was nearly destroyed 2,000 years ago by an aggressive neighbor. We survived through cunning and determination much as you did. I saw something of my own people in your struggle." "Thank you," Jake said sincerely. "Be careful," Kreoth warned. "You have won a great victory, but victories create expectations. The galaxy will watch humanity closely now. Some will hope you succeed, others will hope you fail, and some will actively work to ensure your failure. "We are ready," Bill said. "I hope so," Kreoth replied. "The galaxy needs new voices and new perspectives. Perhaps humanity can bring fresh ideas to old problems. But first you must survive the political games that follow any major shift in power." Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Grant stood in the war room and watched the news broadcasts. The entire planet was celebrating humanity's recognition by the Galactic Council. People danced in the streets. Governments issued proclamations. Children dreamed of traveling to distant stars. But Lisa did not celebrate. She studied reports from her intelligence division. Dr. Helen Brooks sat across from her reviewing technical specifications. "The Council believes we showed all our capabilities," Lisa said quietly. Helen smiled. "Then they are mistaken. The Battle of Earth used maybe 30% of our actual arsenal. The rest remains classified. The dark projects?" Lisa asked. "Ahead of schedule," Helen confirmed. "We cracked faster than light travel last week. The first test chip will be ready in 6 months. By this time next year, we will have operational FTL drives." Lisa nodded. The entire war had been a calculated risk. Earth had weapons and technologies that even the victorious battle had not revealed. The goal was not just to win, but to keep potential enemies uncertain about human capabilities. "And the colony ships?" Lisa asked. "Being built in deep space beyond Neptune where Council sensors cannot detect them," Helen replied. "We will have 5,000 people ready to depart within 2 years. By the time anyone realizes we have FTL travel, we will have colonies in a dozen unclaimed systems. The Council will not be happy when they find out," Lisa noted. "The Council does not need to know everything," Helen said. "We agreed not to expand into claimed territory. Everything else is fair game." Lisa looked out at the stars through the war room's display screens. Humanity had fought for the right to exist in the galaxy. Now they would prove they deserved that right. They would explore and grow and build. They would make mistakes and learn from them. They would face new challenges and overcome them. "Do you think we will fight them again?" Helen asked. Lisa considered the question. "Maybe. The Vryn hold grudges and we humiliated them badly. But maybe not. Maybe we surprised everyone, including ourselves. Maybe we can actually be the peaceful explorers we pretended to be." She paused and smiled. "But just in case we cannot, I want you to keep building those ships and developing those weapons. Peace is wonderful, but peace only lasts when you are strong enough that no one dares threaten you." "Humanity's motto," Helen said, "hope for the best and prepare for the worst." "It has kept us alive this long," Lisa agreed. Above Earth, the stars shone with new promise. Humanity had taken its first steps into a vast galaxy filled with wonders and dangers. They had proven themselves worthy of respect through courage and ingenuity. Now the real work began, building a future among the stars, making alliances and avoiding enemies, growing stronger while staying true to the values that made them human. The galaxy would never be the same. And neither would humanity. They had declared war to defend their home. Now they would build peace to secure their future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. United, determined, human.